Ladies, some of you are not practicing strategically, and it shows. If you want to learn what it means to practice strategically and stand out in your next competition, stick around because we're going to talk about it right after this. Welcome to Contestants, the standard in pageantry, a global pageant coaching and media brand. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Contestants. I'm your host, Teresa. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what it means to practice strategically. I think there are quite a few contestants who are out there practicing, but maybe they're not practicing in the right way. They're practicing the things that they already know how to do really well. And I think that's why we see some contestants that plateau and some that seem to improve dramatically in one competition season. So what I want you ladies to take away from this is that if you're not practicing the right things, you will not see improvement in the areas in which you need to see improvement. I think that as human beings, we are hardwired, conditioned to focus on our strengths, right? Because our strengths are where we feel most comfortable, most confident, and they make us feel good. They're the things that come most naturally to us. And that's why I think a lot of contestants don't want to focus on their gaps, because your gaps are the areas that make you feel uncomfortable. They're the places that bring up insecurities. They don't make you feel good. It's a level of vulnerability that comes with that you need to have. And I think some people are afraid of that vulnerability. But here's the interesting thing about pageantry. That is exactly what pageantry requires us to do. That is what it needs us to do. It needs us to hold up a mirror to ourselves and be open and honest and identify the areas in which we need help, our gaps. And sometimes that can be really scary, but it is exactly the thing that we need to do if we want to build a stronger version of ourselves. And that is ultimately what pageantry is all about, is helping you to build a stronger version of yourself so you can go into the world and be more confident and be more successful. It's not just about winning a crown. It is about what you can take away after that competition. That is a true measure of success. Because remember, ladies, you only get the crown for 1 year. But if you can walk away from a competition feeling even more empowered in yourself, then that is real success. But often what we end up seeing is that contestants will focus on the things that they're doing really well. They're not taking the time to review past performance footage objectively. They're not having any measurable goals. They're not practicing with any feedback. And ultimately, what they're doing is confusing confidence with preparedness. I want to share a little story with you that I think will put all of this into perspective. Some years ago, I was following a contestant who was competing for her country's Miss Universe competition. She was about 18 years old, and from what I understand, she did not have any prior pageant experience. But she had a lot of presence and she was gorgeous. She even had a really good walk for someone who had never competed before. Now, I followed her throughout the competition, and the one thing that I noticed that she had a bit of a gap with was in her communication skills. I mean, she was confident, she was, outspoken, and she was eloquent in her response, but her answers often lacked depth and substance. She was still very surface level. Her messaging didn't feel very cohesive. And so I knew that that was an area that she was going to need to work on in order to really secure that top spot. Anyway, the night of the competition rolled around and she did amazing on stage. Strong walk, great performance, but she finished second runner up. And I think it was because she just was not as strong with her communication skills as she could have been. Now, I was pleasantly surprised the very next year to see that she had decided to recompete, because I'm all about recompeting. I love to see it. So I decided I was going to reach out to her just to see where her head is at, kind of see how is she approaching this second time. So when I reached out to her, I did ask her, what are you going to do differently than you did last year? And she said, oh, I'm just going to continue doing what I did last year and focus on my runway skills. And I knew right then and there that based on the class of contestants that she was competing with the second time around, that she was not going to place because the girls that she was up against had stronger communication skills and were decent on stage. And so I knew it was going to be an uphill battle for her. And unfortunately, because she only wanted to focus on her runway skills, she did not end up placing. So that is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, of wanting to stay in that comfort zone and be comfortable and not really looking and being objective and identifying your areas for improvement. That is something that will greatly hold you back if you are being blinded to that type of thing. So you may be asking yourself, what does strategic practice actually look like? What does it entail? So basically it entails reviewing past performance so that you can identify your weakest category. And once you know what that area is, then you can focus on it. And you want to be specific about what that weakness is or what that gap is, because that will dictate what you should focus on in your training sessions. So for example, if we're using the young lady from my story, her specific gap was within communication. But what about communication was she struggling in? It wasn't really delivery, because she was very engaging to listen to. It was more so depth. I think she needed to do a little bit more deeper digging and reflection into who she is, what she stood for, and why. That why just was not coming across. So be very specific about what it is that you are struggling with so that you can hone in on that and really get to the nitty-gritty and fix that issue. The second thing is to practice under pressure. If your preparation only works under comfortable conditions, then you are not ready for the stage. Let me say that again. If your preparation only works under comfortable conditions, you are not ready for the stage. Okay? When you are practicing, you have to create that similar or exact same environment under which you are going to be performing. For example, if you are practicing your Q&A, you wouldn't be practicing that sitting down, because chances are you're not going to be sitting down when you answer your Q&A. You're going to be standing. You're going to be in heels. You might be in a dress. Like, you're going to have people looking at you. So you want to create those same kind of environments because you want to be able to ensure that you can deliver under that type of pressure. Now, the other thing that you should be doing is you should be recording your practices. And when you record them, it's not just to look at it, to see if it's social media worthy, to see if you look pretty. It is to actually analyze your performance in that session. And you want to be looking for any habits or patterns that are emerging that you may want to eliminate. You want to be able to see where your energy drops. You also want to make sure that whatever you're practicing actually translates well on camera, meaning sometimes you can have an idea in your head. Let's say you're doing runway and you have a specific pose in your head, and then you go to do that pose and then you look at the camera and it doesn't look great. That's what I mean. You want to make sure that the things that you are envisioning for your performance actually look good on you and actually translate well on camera, because girls, the camera never lies. Strategic contestants use that footage to refine details within their performance instead of just looking at it as a clip for social media. And lastly, let's talk about targeted repetition. Once you have identified those patterns, those habits that you want to eliminate, that is what you are going to focus on. That is where you're going to put the most energy in all of your sessions, so you can ensure that you are practicing things with intention. You are practicing to refine yourself, so that when the night comes, when that final moment comes, you don't have to be stressed. You can be completely confident because you know you put in the right kind of practice. And this is exactly what I work on with my clients, whether they're beginner pageant girls or seasoned competitors. It doesn't matter. when they come to me, I like to start by assessing their skills. If they're a seasoned competitor, I will ask for past footage, scores, or feedback from judges if they have it. If they're a beginner girl, I will usually evaluate their skills to see where they are at. And by doing that, it gives me a good indication of where we need to focus so I can then customize my sessions to focusing on your gaps. Because ladies, it makes zero sense to focus on the things that you are already great at. We need to be focusing on the things that need improvement, because that is what is going to increase your scores. And it's also what's going to make you the most consistent contestant. And that is ultimately what you want to be, is a consistent contestant. You don't want to have these high and low fluctuations in your scoring. You want to be pretty even keel, right? Because consistency is really what wins the game. So I just want to close by saying that the contestants who improve the most are not usually the ones who are the most naturally talented. They're the ones who practice with intention. All right, ladies, thank you so much for tuning in. If you found value in this episode, please be sure to comment down below, like, subscribe, and share it with the pageant girl in your life. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, have a great week.